Why Bitcoin Cash? What is Bitcoin Cash good for? Well, just like Bitcoin, with a small adjustment, Bitcoin Cash makes it the digital equivalent of cash. Bitcoin Cash is a fast, secure, worldwide, peer-to-peer electronic cash system with low processing fees. Bitcoin was just the first step. Bitcoin Cash is the next. Bitcoin Cash believes peer-to-peer electronic cash is a useful tool towards economic freedom. So check out Bitcoin Cash at whybitcoincash.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Today, we have Lachlan Giles, the legend, on with young Walt joining us, too. Welcome to the show, man. Appreciate you coming on, Lachlan.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, so I mean, I got to just throw out there, man. I was invited by Mo to come out and check out ADCC. I'm part of the Kasai team and the management team over there, and so I had a front row ticket VIP to 2019 ADCC, and let me tell you, man, that was some show that you put on. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was definitely, if I was going to have a good performance, that was the day to do it. So,
so yeah, I mean, up until then, man, I've seen a lot of your instructionals and your, different, media and videos that you have on YouTube and online. And up until then, man, though, seeing you actually live, especially in the Absolute, was just unreal. It just goes to show that, putting on a show and being exciting is what this new level in jiu-jitsu is going to be about going forward,
Yeah. No, it was,
So actually, let's go into some of your history there. I mean, maybe not a lot of people know, but so you're starting jiu-jitsu coming up and all of that.
So yeah, how I got started. So I was about 15. I actually started doing kung fu. I watched a Jet Li movie and I thought that looks like, it'd be cool.
That's so cool to a 15-year-old, man.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I was obsessed with Jet Li. Loved those movies.
Yeah.
Fist of Legend. Oh man, yeah.
So I watched that and I was like, I'm going to do some martial arts, and I wanted to do kung fu. And then at some point, I got exposed to Royce Gracie and UFC, and I said, oh well, I need to do some grappling if I'm going to be serious about martial arts. Mm-hmm. And then pretty much once I went to a jiu-jitsu school. There was this was pretty much 20 years ago now, so jiu-jitsu is very different to how it is now. But yeah, especially in Australia, I think whatever you had there in America was probably like 5 years before what we had in Australia. As in, things just took a lot longer to get across here. So it was certainly different to how it is now in terms of the technical development and approach.
Yeah, the first time I heard of Australia being on the map, whether it was MMA or jiu-jitsu, was Elvis Sinisic. I mean, I remember.
Yeah.
Oh man,
years ago, I'm like, well, where is this guy from? You know what I mean? And then years later, he's had all these names popping up on the jiu-jitsu scene. You had Kit Dale and, obviously yourself, Levi. We've had Levi out to my academy, and obviously Craig Jones, obviously. So yeah, that's awesome, man. And now Craig, a lot of people also don't know, it came up with you. Is that right?
So he came to my gym at purple belt. So
okay,
yeah, he's
his black belt under you, right?
I gave him his black belt. Yeah. He was training in Adelaide, which is like another city in Australia. I'm from Melbourne, and I got a gym in Melbourne, and I think it was around the time that he was preparing for ADCC trials. He came down to do a training camp as a purple belt. And I think like we both liked training together. I could see how talented he was. So I think we offered him like a job teaching the morning classes at our gym just to try to get him down to Melbourne to train with us. And he agreed to do that. So
that's great. Yeah.
And then like 2-3 years later, he's submitting Leandro Lowe and Morales Santana at ADCC. And
man. And that gym is Absolute MMA, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it was, but I mean, he was always so talented, like when I first saw him, like roll with him, I knew he had so much potential.
But what was the scene in Australia? You mentioned it before, like kind of like everything was like 5 years behind over there. Was it just kind of a couple of big schools where you got to train and everybody was kind of maybe just meeting up on their own because there wasn't a lot of schools available?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think when I say 5 years behind, especially before, I think that's probably like pre internet and like as in like now there's kind of like I think Australia's doing pretty well now because you can just go online and watch the worlds and see what everyone's doing and watch instructionals and I think in some ways being isolated from the rest of the world can be really good if you're paying attention. You know, like I think that's actually I attribute that quite a lot to some of my success. I think if you're surrounded by good athletes, you probably don't really look elsewhere to see like what the trends are and so on. Like if you're training at a school with, training at a gym with, you know, I'll just say, you know, I'm training with Hodger Gracie, right? So like I don't really need to look at what else is going on in jiu-jitsu. I just learn from Hodger, which is great. But I also think it's a big advantage in Australia not having that and being able to go, all right, well, I'd watch the worlds and I'd see different people with different styles and I'd try to take different, you know, take a little bit of Marcelo's game and Rafa Mendes, and I could try to recognize pretty early what the trends were and try to keep up, which I think helped me a lot with my development, I think. So
yeah, we actually hear that a lot, like people actually, you know, like coming up and not having like that exposure, right? Some high level, being under someone that's super high level or like a Hodger Gracie or whatever, and actually learning on their own. And we have a lot of high level people that tell us they basically went out and not having some structure actually helped them get to a different level because they approached it a very different way.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have that. Sorry.
Is that the you know, we see that with the game nowadays, everything is like, you know, heel hooks, leg locks, entanglements. Is that something you did very early on with the leg game and all the entanglements and things like that, or is that later on in your training?
Yeah, I think my first jiu-jitsu lesson after watching UFC, I'd seen Ken Shamrock doing heel hooks, and I think I went there and tried to heel hook someone, and they were like, "Okay," but I think, yeah. Look, I always just tried to look at the areas people were lacking in, for, like, you know, especially for ADCC. You know, I was like, well, where's coming from my perspective, being in Australia, I thought it's probably going to be hard for me to get to a level where I can beat the top guys at their own game, but I can choose an area like leg locks where I can try to excel. You know, it was really leg locks and wrestling, which I thought were the big gaps in ADCC. I think the wrestling gap has well and truly started to close now. Like people in, especially in my division, they look like good wrestlers now, whereas maybe like 5-6 years ago, it wasn't the case. Leg locks, I think people have gotten considerably better at as well, but that's very athlete dependent. Some athletes, I think, have not really got on board and they still have a big weakness there, and some are very well up to date. So
now, were you incorporating like wrestling early on into your jiu-jitsu, or was that something that happened more in the latter years, you know?
Probably, actually, I was trying to train wrestling when I was younger. Like I think I was, but then when I was 19, I had a knee injury from wrestling. I tore my LCL, like full tear. So I had to get surgery on that and had pretty much a year off from training. And that kind of put me off for a long time. And then once I started getting ready for ADCC trials and so on, I started getting back into it. So it's probably been like the last 7 years with a decent focus on wrestling. But at the same time, in Australia, Walt's chipping in his.
Well, he agrees, man. He agrees about the wrestling. You gotta get the wrestling in.
Now you're a lot of, even in your instructionals, of people watching, especially most of the setups I saw when you hit those heel hooks at ADCC, definitely had a different flair to it. Even just talking about the finishing mechanics and even the setups to where, as I understand it, and I didn't even delve into the leg locks until into my training and even beyond black belt. So I'm still fairly new to it, but it seemed to me that instead of thinking about securing an inside Senkaku and then thinking about the heel, seems like you'd be thinking about that heel control and then finding the legs and then the finish. Is that kind of how you're approaching it, or naturally it came that way?
Yeah, that kind of evolved from, obviously, actually, I probably to be honest, my first exposure to somewhat of a leg lock system was watching Ryan Hall's 50-50 instructionals, which was I don't know, it's probably 11, 12 years ago. I remember I studied that before an ADCC trials in Australia, which I came second at. This is 10 years ago or so. Mm-hmm. And so I basically watched that instructional and I just sat in 50-50 and worked from there. Then I was kind of just probably when I first saw Eddie Cummings on EBI, there was a point where I was I'd heard these, the Danaher guys were doing well. But I thought they hadn't really faced anyone that was high caliber. So I was a little bit skeptical. But then seeing, I think Eddie Cummings was in the same division as Meow. I don't think they actually fought, but I was he won a division with a very good grappler in it. So I'm going to start paying a bit more attention to the system. And I think he won all these fights by leg lock. So I started playing with the saddle and, I call it that, but whatever. Everyone has their
There's 5-6 names for that position now, right?
Yeah. So, but we would just at training, we would just start from those positions and quite, to me, reasonably quickly, we especially training with Craig and some of the guys who have developed good defense, we learned reasonably quickly that if you defend the saddle early and the right way, it's pretty the odds are really in the defender's favor. If they just try to address it and recognize the position and address it. So the problem is then that if you're going for position first and then heel hook second, you're kind of not 100%, but you're in some ways relying on your opponent not knowing how to defend to get the heel. You're getting the position, okay, but if they know what they're doing, it's now going to be really tough to actually get the heel.
That's kind of what we're seeing, right? We're seeing the people that are not even educated in basic leg locks. That works perfectly fine. Secure a saddle, boom, you go for the finish. Yet, now you're getting into people that know leg locks, and especially with the way you did it in backside 50-50. And most of the times that I saw you going for an ADCC and getting it, I thought the knee line was lost already.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's what I think people, when they see you do these heel hooks and it's very different in that aspect, because you think you lost the knee line, but yet that's exactly what you're looking for. And you basically, sometimes you just pass in the heel to the other side and getting your wrist to wrist. And especially backside 50-50. I think that's the new, not really new, but the next level in leg locking. And you showed that for sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I started to grab. I don't know if it was a deliberate thing, but I just sort of noticed that when I was doing this training, that when I ended up in 50-50 base positions, I tended to have a little more success actually finishing, and often even just when I was in the saddle, if I was doing some situational training starting from the saddle, I would often feel like I had more success if I kind of unlocked or changed my leg position to something more like a 50-50 when someone starts to roll and defend than to keep the standard kind of leg positioning there. So I think there was that. And then I started I was watching the North American trials. I sort of did a very loose count of where people were actually getting heel hooks from. And I think I counted more finishes from 50-50 than saddle. And I was like, okay, I think that's where it's headed. I'm going to kind of double down on that. Right. And yeah, so obviously the backside 50-50 is, I think it's definitely a good position to finish. Although to me, I just see that as part of a continuum with the 50-50 system, because like anything can be defended, but like nowadays you'll probably find people are pretty good when you enter backside, they'll backstep, but that kind of draws them into my regular 50-50 game as well. So, but it's the next thing I think, which I think is interesting, because we're now going back to where some of the previous jiu-jitsu, or like the standard style of jiu-jitsu guys might come in again, is I think like the person who's trying to leg lock is usually susceptible to a back take or a berimbolo. So it's a weird thing where you first need to be really confident in your leg lock defense, but once you've got that, you can then start turning someone else's attack into a back take. So that's kind of something that I think we're seeing now starting to play out in the high level scrambles.
Do you guys, you mentioned situational training, right? Do you guys do, is it like a bigger portion of your training situational training, or is it like, live rolling, or what do you guys do?
We probably get a good mix of both. So like we have our pro training, which is in the morning. Thanks, Swap. He's got strong grips.
Good grips.
I see that.
Yeah.
He's doing combat jiu-jitsu on you, man.
Yeah. We have a morning training, which is like usually like 10 minutes of drilling, which is drills is pretty much just a warm-up. And then we get straight into situational training, where it's either like there's like Monday to Thursday is the like kind of formal ones. Then Friday's kind of like an open mat where you can drill or roll or whatever you want to do for the pro guys. The situational training, it depends. Monday, Wednesday, we do like ADCC specific things. So we'll do a lot of like scenarios based around wrestling scrambles or back takes, or like kind of where the points or score, where you're likely to score or finish from. It might be from a leg entanglement as well. But like kind of starting from those spots, and just, I think like in a roll, you might get into a back take scramble once in a 10-minute roll. But by doing situational training, you can get 10 attempts in a 10-minute round at trying to take someone's back. You should learn a lot more about that situation, I think. So I try to kind of do a lot of that. And then I also try to just give, everyone has their own style. So I also let people kind of choose a position that they want to start from as well. Like, if you want to work your X guard, then start from there.
Right.
Go, first point or whatever, or you try and sweep, your opponent gets out, reset, go again. So to me, you learn a lot quicker. The rolling to me is obviously really good to kind of see where your weaknesses are. Like, okay, I'm rolling with this guy and I'm struggling to get the finish. So, and from this position, I need to go back and do some situational training there and improve on that. So I think that formula works pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, you see that a lot. I mean, we talk about it a lot on this show. I mean, I came up and a lot of it was just warm-up technique, and you battle it out for a bunch of rounds, you know what I mean, and just beat the shit out of each other. Whereas, I mean, something you're drilling in a specific position, maybe if you live roll for 5-6 rounds, you maybe only get there once or twice in a position you want to try. Is that really going to be a good use of your time and increasing your level, rather than forcing yourself in certain positions, more so than just, one time a week, it's like a specific type of training that people have to open up to,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like what you're saying about like even positions people want to work on, you know what I mean? That's good, because, you're starting in whatever, if you have trouble escaping when someone has your back, start with that position or whatever the case is, Yeah,
I mean, ideally, right. Ideally, everyone has their own thing that they're working on, and the thing they're working on is the exact kind of problem in their game. That's like in an ideal world, that's how it works. It's a bit harder running a class exactly like that, just because not everyone's acutely studying what's going on in their game and coming in with a plan on how to train that each time. But I definitely think that's really an issue in jiu-jitsu class structure, is that you're teaching to everyone, like even just just a general class. You're trying to teach to a whole group of people who have different experiences and they all have different games, and you have to try to find a move or like a position or a sequence that is relevant to the majority of them, or at least to some of them. But without a doubt, whatever you teach sometimes going to be wasted on some people, because they either not going to use that move. It might be too advanced. It could be, there could be better things they could be doing with their time, but that's how it is if you're running a class. But I try to like give, especially in our intermediate advanced classes, I sort of say to people, look, if you got something you want to work on, I'm totally okay with you doing that, as long as they're still following like the general class format. Because I think just as a gym owner, you don't want people kind of coming in and just doing whatever they want. They still need to like come in, follow all the rules, and kind of just so it doesn't become chaos.
Right. Yeah. You'll never keep control. You have one guy like, stretching in the corner, another guy doing push-ups. You know what I mean? Like,
The problem is you let one person do that, and then like everyone's like, well, we're allowed to do that. And then more people start doing it, and you're like, oh, I'm starting to lose the class here. So yeah, you got to kind of, unfortunately, be a bit strict on that.
Now, are you guys doing mostly no-gi or gi and gi and no-gi?
In terms of our classes, we offer, I try to do a mix of both. I think just probably through my no-gi success, and I don't know if it's the trend, but our no-gi classes are more popular. So we're actually finding that when we're adjusting the timetable, we're kind of like, well, do we put more, more people wanting to do no-gi, do we put more on? Or so it's like, it's becoming, I don't know if that's something that's happening worldwide or just at our gym, but I'm certainly finding that no-gi's more popular here.
Yeah, it's definitely seems. I think it definitely seems to be the worldwide trend. Like, no-gi is, seems to be the biggest thing. I mean, look at even, look at even the events for no-gi.
Yeah, you get the crossovers, you know what I mean, from wrestling and MMA more. You also, it's actually easier to, some people will argue, oh, you're not going to make as much money because you're not going to sell gis, but I disagree. I think it's a little easier, no-gi, people to try a class. They don't, now you got to borrow a gi, or, I got to sell you a gi or something. But I think the no-gi in that aspect is a little bit more easier to get new people involved. It's also a little more spectator friendly. Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel that way. It's definitely a spot for the gi. People love the gi. It's a unique thing. It's a niche thing. I get that too,
Yeah, I think whatever you're kind of training a lot, you tend to get more into that. that's been my experience. So I do know, I know some people in Melbourne who are like, oh, we have one no-gi class a week and no one turns up. I'm like, yeah, but it's probably because you got one no-gi class a week. Like, it's hard to get excited about all the no-gi grips and leg locks and so on if you're doing it once a week, and then you're dealing with all these gi problems every day, and it's probably vice versa. As if you do all no-gi, it's very hard to get into the gi. But we tried to go with the 50-50 thing, and it seems to be heading towards no-gi. So I think that might be a good indicator of what the trend is.
Well, I think the rule set plays a big role in this, because, you're not allowed to heel hook in the gi, and then no gi, you can. And I think we saw that over time, getting out of leg locks. No longer can you just stand up and turn around and rip your leg out as an escape. You know what I mean? So as that evolved and the rule set kind of pushed people with the gi more to IBJJF, and everything else was, not IBJJF for no gi, and to be able to do heel hooks, I think that caused a lot of this split too.
Yeah, it's I think it's hard as a spectator, right? When you're watching some of the little lapel grips and so on. And sometimes it's weird because no-gi matches can be boring too, but I think it's more easy to understand what the battle's going on. People can just stand up and wrestle but not actually do anything for 20 minutes. And you still kind of understand in some way what they're trying to do as a spectator, but someone playing with a lapel, you might be like, well, I can't put myself in that situation. And for a lot of people, obviously for experienced grapplers they can, but not everyone watching is an experienced grappler.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, most of the time watching a no gi fight is much more exciting than watching a gi fight. Like if you just stack them side by side, you know, the average fight, you're going to enjoy a lot watching the action in no gi.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Talk a little bit about the actual ADCC experience, because obviously, you know, the Forte, no gi, leg locks, you were going in absolute. You were the smallest guy in there, one of them. You know, just that whole David versus Goliath feel. Obviously, the goal was to do what you do best, but was it like, I am going in there and I am going to heal this guy? Or heel hook this guy at all costs? Or, I mean, you obviously just found it in your own game, but to do it as many times as you did it, in each match, you know what I mean? Was it just like, I am just going for this heel hook no matter what? Or was it just like, I'm just going out there and just, you know, just going to have a match?
I kind of felt like I had no choice but to, like, in some ways it was like, I felt like in my weight division, I was maybe a little more tentative. I was trying, you know, I was against Lucas Lepre. I was like, okay, he's my weight. I'm going to try to like pick the right time to, you know, get my attacks going. And then, which obviously didn't work out for me. But in open weight, I think my first match was Kine, and I was like, well, I've got one way I can win this. And if I don't try and get to there as quick as possible, it's not going to end well. Like, I'm probably going to get, I'm going to get to his, I have to get to his leg. So I probably came out a bit more aggressive, which was good. And I knew exactly the pathway I needed to, you know, to go through to have a chance at winning that match. So, and I kind of just applied that to, you know, they didn't get any smaller. So I just kept that same formula going.
That's awesome. And that Flow film, I think it was the film that they did on Gordon, at ADCC, is when the whole story of Gordon coming through, and then they had that clip of you, because I guess you guys was, you know, slated to meet in the absolute. I don't know if you saw that. But that the whole clip in a couple of sections was literally Gordon's reaction to you hitting those heel hooks. It was great. You know, he was like shouting you out, and then you guys fought. What at what point did you wind up? You trained with the Donahoe crew for a little while, right? Or visited a couple times, or? No,
I never trained there actually.
Okay.
I was hoping to, but I just never got around to getting to New York and training with it. That would have been an experience, but oh well.
They've been inspired a lot of it, right? Like they like, you know, their training and their techniques. Did you actually like study what they were doing, kind of, or you just kind of were inspired by that they were beating everybody with leg locks?
Yeah, I thought they were obviously like a lot of really good no-gi grapplers that, like, you know, seem to be pushing to evolve the sport in the no-gi area. So like Craig was going and training there. So yeah, I was looking forward to that. But now, you know, I'm looking forward to going to B team at some point. I'm waiting on my visa to come back. So
B team, Plan B, Mexican ground karate.
Right. Well, and here's the thing: you could jump from Danaher to B team if you want. They're right next to each other. You know,
B team is amazing. I love those guys. Yeah. We've had Ethan at my academy. He did a seminar there. We've trained with him, and we're going to be visiting a B team as well. Shout out to those guys. It's just an awesome crew. Nicky Rod, meeting him when he was on. Kasai, and even Craig. I mean, comedic genius, that guy. I mean, just all the videos that he puts up. I mean, a Plan B rash guard. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, he's mastered the trolling on the jiu-jitsu mat, hasn't he? Just stirring people up.
He's probably embraced it more than anyone I've seen in the sport. You know, he really has.
Yeah, that's hysterical. Let me fix this. Yeah, there we go. And then let's see. So. And there was also, I think, in like Australia, like we talked to Levi, and Levi told us he came up at a place that was like, I think it was called Open Gym or something, where it was like an open mat feel every session, and that's what Brian was talking about, where like you go into a different situation where it's very unstructured. It actually could be a good thing, you know, in a sense, to develop your own uniqueness and style and everything. Is that kind of how you see a lot of the gyms in Australia kind of go by, or that was one particular gym?
Yeah, that one's unique. It's in Sydney, so a different city. But
Okay.
yeah, I think they opened up. I guess it must have just been people who were. I'm guessing it was people who were training at like some academy, and they were probably sick of going to classes and doing drills.
How do you do it at Absolute? Is it are you particularly like a no-gi school? How does that at Absolute? How do you guys run that there?
We do slightly more no-gi than gi now, but it's pretty much try to keep it close to 50-50. But
that's great.
We do have open mats and they're always busy, and it's always got a lot of advanced guys. So that's like we now have one midweek, like Wednesday night, and we have Friday night and Saturday. So there's kind of plenty of time to come in and just do whatever you want. But I'm pretty in my class, as I said earlier, I'm pretty I'm okay with people kind of working on their own thing, so long as it's within the general format, which is, a format that I like to train with anyway, which is like situational. We'll usually start with some sort of drills or technique, which is kind of part of just a warm up, as well as just just familiarizing yourself with a certain movement, and then situational training and rolling. So I think it's a pretty reasonably fun way to train anyway. So
yeah, that's another thing that came up recently, and I've seen a couple people post about it, where it's like you should be in jiu-jitsu, you should be doing, even from the start of the class, you should be doing jiu-jitsu, whether that's like slow partner drills to warm up. I mean, I remember back in the day, starting at 99 and 2000, I mean, the warm-ups were all like basically calisthenics for 45 minutes. It's like kicking your ass.
I felt like I was in like, a junior high gym, like run a mile. Do you know what I mean? Remember, it was just running laps.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, that was my first class. It was like half an hour I felt like I was in high school wrestling, before you even start doing any technique, where I feel like now, it's just a little bit more, individualized and focused on the drilling and getting in there right away. Even part of your warm up is the movements. Is that kind of how you do it at Absolute?
Yeah, we don't do a traditional warm up as such. I just, look, each coach has their own way of doing it, which is fine. But I just see a warm up is really just to get blood flow to the muscles, and why not do that with, like, you've got an hour and a half or an hour, depending the class or whatever it is, to improve your jiu-jitsu skills, and you got the rest of the day if you want to get fit or stronger doing strength and conditioning or whatever else. So I kind of think when you're there, you should be putting the maximum amount of your time on developing your technique or your ability to apply that live during training. So that's I'm even I was like doing a lot of research and reading on skill acquisition, and I'm kind of trying to probably put less time into even the drilling part and a bit more into the situational training, because I do think sometimes you can drill a technique and you don't really, like, you could, until you're feeling it live, you don't really know where your pressures need to be and where you're going to mess up. And I can explain that in front of the class, like, we need to do this because this will happen. But until you've really experienced the problem and go like, they, like, when I go here, they're going to underhook me, and I need to stop that somehow. Then you'll be a lot more receptive to instruction. So I'm trying to do it a little more of, instead of me, we look at, I still have this part of it, but like I'm trying to do a little bit less sitting there at the start of class explaining all the details, and a little more like, I'll explain some details, go in there, try it, and then tell me like where you're having issues, and we'll I can explain like, oh yeah, that's happening, you need to be putting your pressure here, and they'll then be able to assign a bit more meaning to the feedback or instruction I'm giving. Because I think when you just get instruction without feeling it, it's not, although you might feel like as a coach you've given them the information, they're probably not going to be receptive to it. So that's one way I'm trying to change my coaching a bit.
Well, and I think the good part about that is like, someone, when they're doing it live, right? You show them the technique, you show them the steps, but like maybe their grip's slightly off on one side, someone's not putting enough pressure to one way, so everyone's going to do something slightly different, or slightly maybe not correct, in the aspect while they're learning. And you don't really find that out until you're trying to pull something off in a live situation. You really don't, because your training partner's going, okay, yeah, you're doing this arm bar or whatever, and they're going to let you do it. They're not really giving you too much resistance. So
I even like when we're doing the drilling, I'm just trying to say like, oh, if you're the partner, just like, if you can, if they're giving like space, like try and slip your elbow if you're working an arm bar or something, like just like not going crazy, but just like let them know if there's an obvious flaw in their technique. Don't just lie there and do nothing. I think wrestlers have just got such a better drilling culture than like that. They kind of drill, but it's kind of like a mix between drilling and rolling. And sparring.
Because growing up wrestling, you do whatever, you'd be doing like a spinning drill, and then over something, the coach would blow the whistle, and you fought live for even if it was like 10 seconds. Do you know what I mean? Like, so you sort of knew where you were, like spatially. Like you don't really find that too much in jiu-jitsu. I don't think I agree with you. I
think it's harder to in jiu-jitsu. It's harder to kind of do that, but not have it just turn into a roll.
Yeah, exactly. But they're not going to stop after 10 seconds, right?
Yeah. Like you can kind of go 1 for 1 in wrestling. Like, you do a takedown, I do a takedown, and I'm just going to like, give you like, you're shooting on me. I'll give you a slight sprawl, and I'll push your head a little bit and make it like kind of hard for you to finish the move, but you'll still get there. But like that doesn't seem to work as well in jiu-jitsu for some reason.
Yeah. What about the let's see, when can we expect you at B Team?
Well, I'm waiting on my visa, which is taking a while. I applied for like an athlete visa just so I can make sure I want to be able to go and do seminars and all these things a legit way, so that I don't risk missing out on ADCC or if anything goes wrong. So I've applied for the visa, and that should, hopefully it's a month or so away, maybe a bit longer from what I'm hearing. But probably after that, then I have to just make sure I've got like a period where I can get away for maybe 3 weeks. It's a long way to go. So
Australia's it's a long trip to Texas.
It's like it's not worth flying that way for a week's training, for example. It's just like you spend more time on a plane than you do there. So probably I'll try and get there for 3 weeks, and it looks like he's got a really good vibe going at the gym. So I'm excited to get there.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you watch all those videos they're putting out, and they definitely got a good vibe going. Yeah, it looks like they're having some fun.
That's the thing. I mean, I think it's the biggest thing you see there. I mean, they're on each other's ass, making fun of each other. It's hysterical, man. It's like a Seinfeld episode when they post their videos. It's good. So what? Let's see what else. I had a couple of different questions. Oh, I had a fan entry. Let me pull this up. Shout out to Jim Mack. He put in a question here. Let's see. So number one, everybody wants to see you in a rematch with Gordon, and also he was asking about the accusation of steroids because you're so jacked.
A rematch with Gordon would be fun. The accusation of steroids, that's a funny one. I mean, he had like because I put up a post, saying, look, in my opinion, I mean, I don't even think it's necessarily my opinion. It is actually with ADCC, maybe it's debatable, but like, I just see it as cheating. So like, I think I put up a post saying if you won, but you're taking steroids, you didn't really deserve the medal. I think it's cheating. Like think about all the people, even let's just pretend everyone in the field was taking it. What about all the people who couldn't make it to ADCC because they decided to, do it the right way and clean, and they couldn't actually get there because of that. Let's say that was a big enough factor. But yeah, I just think, to me, in my mind, it's cheating anyway. And then he tried to accuse me of being on steroids and took a photo of my face. He said my head's grown like twice, which was hilarious. So I mean, he took a photo of me when I was cutting weight to lightweight, which was like probably like 7 or 8 years ago. I would have been cutting to about 73 kilos. And he posted that compared to me at ADCC, which was 77 kilos, and said there's a 20-pound difference, which is like, no, that's just me. Like I literally, even for ADCC, I walk around at like 79. I cut like 2 kilograms. I don't, like most people do like big cuts. Anyway, so it was pretty funny. He kind of,
it's pretty funny. And a picture like 7 years apart, you know what I mean? Like, how much your body changes in 7 years, It's crazy.
And apparently my head's grown twice the size.
So yeah, shout out what you got. All the things you got coming up here. What do you got now? Like you're getting ready for a couple of different things, right?
I suppose the main thing is ADCC, which I don't have any other fights booked yet, but I do plan on doing a couple of competitions in the lead up. Just like ADCC will probably be my last one. I'm now 35, and I'm definitely feeling the effects of trying to train as an elite grappler at 35. So I think ADCC will probably be my last shot at it. So I just want to do it just to get all the pre-competition nerves and get kind of the comp feel again. I'll probably do a few matches just in the lead up for that, but I'm not sure when that will be. So otherwise, we've got the teams got in the Australian trials have been pushed back to June. So we've got the whole team getting ready for that. So it's just kind of like preparation up to then, and hopefully I can get a few, a trip out to B team and so on before then. And yeah, just obviously working on some instructionals. I've got a new online training website coming out pretty soon as well. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So I've been doing been pretty busy, especially when we had COVID here and we couldn't do anything. So let me focus a lot on instructionals, and it's still training, but just
what's it like down there now? What's the dynamic down there now? It was terrible there for a while, right?
Yeah, it's pretty normal now. It's pretty much normal now, to be honest. They've finally opened to tourists again and so on. It was just I think it was a weird thing where Australia kind of managed to get no COVID, they managed to get it down to 0. So the strategy was then well, we're at 0, let's keep it there, and then, which actually worked for a while. We were open with 0 restrictions while the world was as in Australia, there was no restriction. There's big border restrictions, but there's no restrictions in Australia, and most of the world was kind of locking down, and we're oh, we've actually got it pretty good. And we're training and everything, and then I think Delta came along or something, one of the variants came along, which was a bit more spread easier. And then it just kept breaking through the quarantine. COVID kept coming in, and then they'd lock down really hard to try and get rid of it again. And then that just kept going. I was and then it went down, at least in my opinion, that ended up being way too much. And we were kind of stuck in these big long lockdowns. We ended up having more lockdowns than in Melbourne, where I am, than any other part of the world, I think. So yeah, it sucked, but now it seems like COVID's it's here. It's most people have had it or been exposed to it, at least now, and it seems like everyone's pretty happy to train and so on. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Thanks for back to normality to some degree.
That's good, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think we were all feeling it for a while, especially, I mean, we're all pretty much addicted to jiu-jitsu, you know. So it was rough.
Yeah.
But where can everyone find more about you, man? Online, like your socials, or you said you have a new site coming out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe just follow me on Instagram for now. But
Okay.
yeah, so that's at Lachlan_Giles, I think. I don't actually know 100% sure.
We'll post the link. We'll post the link for
Yeah.
you, man. We'll post the
I don't
link.
know how many. I don't know how many fake Lachlan Giles are out there, but yeah, you'll find me.
Maybe you look 100 pounds more, but jacked
Yeah.
out. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Don't click the one with the head twice the size of.
Yeah. Oh man,
That's Gordon's fake account. Yeah.
It's shadow banned.
that's right. That's right.
Nice.
hey,
Well, man, we really appreciate you coming on. We can't wait to see you at the next ADCC, man. And yeah, wish you all the best of luck to you with that. And we're gonna do our best to be there in person. But yeah, really can't wait to see you on those mats again. And let's definitely stay in touch. And guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and let's follow Lachlan. And we'll be in touch. Stick around, Lachlan. Thanks, guys.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much.